Hello everyone, in this session we will discuss about the types of PCB. Single-sided PCB is one of the type, and then dual-sided PCB and multi-layer PCB. So let us discuss about the single-sided PCB. The single-sided PCB or the printed circuit board, these are the type of PCB that has conductive traces and components on only one side of the board. I hope you understand that the conductive traces, that is routing, connection, and the components on only one side of the PCB, and then there is nothing on the other side. And the second one is dual-sided PCB, is a type of printed circuit board that has conductive traces and the components on both sides of the PCB. And the multi-layer PCB. So multi-layer PCB is a type of PCB that consisting of more than two conductive layer sandwiched between the insulating layers. So we'll discuss that in detail. And the fourth one is the rigid PCB. Rigid PCBs are commonly used in electronic devices and a system where the board is not subject to bending or flexing during the operations. So most of the PCBs will be rigid PCBs. If you find in your consumer electronic products, you find the PCBs are rigid, so that we don't need to bend those kind of PCBs, or we don't need to flex during its operation. Those PCBs are all called a rigid PCB. These rigid PCBs can be single-sided, can be double-sided, or can be multi-layer also. So the next type is the flexible PCB, the flex PCB we call it in general. The flexible printed circuit board, so also known as flex circuit or flexible PCB. It is a type of printed circuit boards which is designed to be flexible and bendable. So if you wanted to connect from one PCB to another PCB, so you can use these flexible PCBs for getting the routing access or connection access from one PCB to another PCB. We can use flex PCBs. And the next type is here rigid flex PCBs. Rigid flex is a combination of rigid PCB as well as flex PCB that is used to connect a different board or combination of many PCBs into one PCB. So that comes the rigid and flex PCB. It is a combination of rigid as well as flex PCB. So we'll discuss one by one. The first type is the single-sided PCB. So here we can say the single-sided PCB is if your PCB, this is your PCB, so we can mount the component on top or either bottom. So only one side component will be mounted, that is called top-sided component placement, and there is connection on only one side, and that is called single-sided PCB. So double-sided or dual-sided PCBs are those PCBs which have the component placement on both side, top as well as bottom, and including the connections also. You can place the component top as well as bottom side. Either it may be SMT components or through-hole components. Yes, we can go for these as double-sided PCBs. So the next one is multi-layer PCB. So apart from the top copper and the bottom copper, we will also have the internal copper, which is sandwiched between the two. This is one dielectric, this is another dielectric, and this is the internal layer that is sandwiched between the two different dielectric material. So this is multi-layer PCB, so which gives you more than two copper layers. It may be single-sided, so we can place the component on only one side and we can give the connections in 4 layer, or you can also give the connections on both side, top as well as bottom, that is dual-sided. So the multi-layer PCB can be single-sided or can be double-sided or the dual-sided PCB, but it has more than 2 copper layers for routing purpose. So this is a multi-layer PCB. We can say anything which is having more than 2 layer or all comes under multi-layer PCB. So we'll have 4 layers, 6 layer, 8 layer, 10, 12, 16 layer PCBs are also available in the market. So apart from this, we have the flex rigid PCB. These are the rigid PCB if you can consider. So the body, if the PCB body is not bendable, so that all comes under rigid PCB. So if you want to bend, it is just only used for connection purpose, that comes under a flex PCB. So if you want to connect a different rigid PCB is using the flex PCB, so we can use rigid flex PCB. This is all about rigid flex PCB. Can also be single sided or double sided or multi-layer, but it will give connection between the two different PCBs. So this is, if you say this is PCB1, and if you want connections on PCB2, and then we can use flex. So we can use the flex. So we also have the rigid and flex, so that comes under rigid flex category. So these are all the types of PCB. So we just recall that. So the PCBs are single sided, double sided, multi-layer, and rigid flex and rigid flex PCBs. These are the different types of PCB. So most probably it will be also an interview questions for freshers. So they will be asked to explain the types of the PCB. Make sure that you will explain it from the single-sided and double-sided, multi-layer. I hope you understood the understanding of types of the PCB. In the next session, we will discuss about the classes of PCB.